Hello and welcome to the NAVS channel. Thank you for being here and visiting us, subscribing to our channel. We are talking about narcissistic abuse. This channel has been created to bring more awareness because I feel there's a lot of people that don't know what narcissistic abuse is. There's a lot of victims out there that are actually victimized and don't even know it. And also, I wanted to help people get tools on how to survive and even thrive after we escape such circumstances. So thank you again for being here, joining us today. I have Victoria. So hi, Victoria. Nice to meet you. And thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, that's great. I'm so happy. So tell me a little bit of your experience with narcissistic abuse, how it started, and what you had to go through.
I actually grew up in a very narcissistic family, and I didn't realize it at first. I had the world's greatest grandparents. They were my heaven-sent angels that actually kept me sane, to be honest. I was the product of, I call her my egg donor, my mother, and my sperm donor, my father, depending on the age of the people I talk to. You know, I just say my biological parents if I'm working with a younger group, because I don't think they deserve the term mom and dad. It's a very well-earned, respectful title, in my opinion. And growing up was very hard. I lived for the moments that I stayed with my grandparents, and I learned that who I wanted to be was the mirror image of them. That I wanted to be that kind of parent. I wanted to be that kind of wife. I wanted to be that kind of person in life because they showed me what I wanted, while my biological parents showed me everything I didn't want and everything I didn't need. I am my biological father's firstborn. My biological mother had a child from a previous marriage, and she really wasn't in the picture. She's older. And then I have a younger brother who hands down was the golden child. I was absolutely the scapegoat. Starting in elementary school, I was in therapy from elementary school to now, because of the fact that I didn't understand why I couldn't get that love that I felt a child should get from their family. Nothing I did was ever good enough. It didn't matter what it was. I sang all state chorus, wasn't good enough. I was captain of the debate team, wasn't good enough. It didn't matter. It wasn't good enough. And then my younger brother literally could do no wrong, and he was everything. He has no relationship with the biological dad, and he is literally, it's honestly a very sick situation that he has with his mother. I really feel for him. He cannot function on his own. It's quite scary. For instance, like, he is an incredibly intelligent individual, but he doesn't see that within himself. So he didn't even start dating until he was in his late 30s, not even a first date. He goes on vacation every year with his mom, and they stay in the same room. They normally go on a cruise together. She does everything for him. She makes his bank deposits. She does his grocery shopping. He'll go over and get groceries. He comes over and gets visitation from their little dog. Like, he'll come over and she waits outside like we would in high school for our boyfriend to drive up. And she waits for him to drive up and then hands the little dog to him like a drive-through window, and he takes her for the weekend. It's really, really sad. He and I have no relationship because my narcissistic mom, if you will, was like the puppet master. She drew the strings and only let them hear what she wanted them to know. My side never came to fruition. So they didn't hear what was really going on. And so therefore we were distanced from one another, and we do not get along at all. My narcissistic father ended up showing me, I guess, if you will, what is acceptable to date growing up, because that's what I saw. I ended up being married to an incredibly abusive man. who has had me have dozens and dozens of surgeries to correct the abuse that he put on me. And my biological father and him got along. I ended up pregnant, and I ended up going and getting the rights terminated from him, so he couldn't be anywhere near my child. I've had, and we're not talking like little injuries. I've had, if you see here, I've had bilateral joint replacement. So I have all these pieces in my face are metal. I'm actually, if you see, I have hearing aids because he shattered my eardrum. So I'm actually deaf.
Oh
now,
my God, I'm so sorry.
I have a titanium shoulder, knee. I have metal in my foot. I have screws and pins in my hand. I'm partially paralyzed on my left. And I fought to keep my daughter safe. And one day, the most amazing thing that came out of my child's mouth is she says, "Why are you so different than your parents?" And I said, "I just wanted you to have better." And she goes, "You gave me everything they didn't." And it hit me so hard because I didn't see it until I was much, much older. And literally in the last maybe 10 years is when it really hit me that I realized how bad it was. My biological father, I did move home, which was quite hard for a person. I was in corporate America. I had a great career. I had everything personally and professionally going on, except I wanted a child. And that's the only thing I was missing. After I left my abuser, I moved in with my parents, which is quite challenging at any age. And I noticed things that was very hard. I still always wanted my dad's approval. I still always wanted him to love me. He's never, I'm proud of you. I've never heard it. I tell my daughter every day, I never heard you're beautiful, you're attractive. I heard you have so many scars. Who's ever going to want you? That is something you don't say to a child ever. My biological mother to this day she told my daughter, "I don't like your mom. I don't love your mom." And that was really hard for me. She has never hugged me. She's never told me, "I love you." But she talks to her son 10 times a day. They text message all day long. "I love you." Da, da, da. I mean, constantly. She has even called him her husband before. And it's just mind blowing. So I guess long story short, my biological father was seeing other women, and he used my daughter and I as an escape for it. We literally were going on my daughter and I were going on a weekend little getaway. And my biological dad said he would go with us. And so I didn't think anything of it at that point. We went. The next day, our first full day out of town, there was a knock on the door, and one of the females that he spoke to all the time appeared at the door. And he never told her. He never told his wife. I took pictures. I'm a very big evidence person after everything I went through. I took pictures of them. I never showed anybody. My therapist was like, "You need to show them. You need to show them so that they know that they don't have that control because they don't deserve that control." Well, I finally broke down and showed my biological mom, who had no reaction at all. And the text messages between the women were so inappropriate. He would bring these women around my daughter, and I would get up and leave. Like, he'd say, "Let's go meet for lunch." And I would say, "Fine." I was trying to keep the peace because we were living there, and he would show up with a woman, and it wasn't his wife. And my daughter and I would get up and leave from where we were. It was done. And we tried to keep our distance until we were able to move out. So narcissism is a very, very painful thing to go through. A lot of people don't recognize it because the narcissist is one way outside of the home, and inside the home, they're completely different. They want power. They want the control. They want the perception of, "I'm such a devoted person. Give me all of your attention." And then the minute something doesn't go right, it's not their fault. They will never take ownership for what they have done, ever. But to the outside, they're all about the perception of making themselves this amazing, wonderful person who does any and everything for everyone. But then nobody ever sees anything getting done. It's like, "Oh, I've done this and this and this," but there's no evidence that this and this and this was done. Does that make sense? Like, that nobody sees that. "Oh, well, you're helping, or you're doing this or you're doing that, but we never saw you help them. Or, you went and did this, but then where's the outcome of that? It's a lot of hot air with no delivery. And it's
A lot of
quite hard.
control and mind manipulation for sure.
Yes, absolutely.
And so, how old is your daughter now?
She's 15.
Oh, nice. So, how long have you been out of that family?
Almost a year, and we're no contact.
That's good. And
Yeah.
so, how did it go when you escaped, when you left? How did you leave?
I left actually the love of my life, my soulmate, was someone I dated for years. We broke up, and then I married my ex, who was abusive, and things happened, and I ended up getting back together with my soulmate, and we got engaged, and we got a house. And so and they knew who he was, and we ended up getting a house. So I asked them if I could get my Christmas belongings from their attic before the holidays, and he wouldn't speak to me. He would have nothing to do with me, wouldn't talk to me, nothing. So I asked her, and her ringtone for me was a dog barking, was her ringtone for me, which was just absurd. So I get over there, and they live in $1 million home. It's outrageous. It's all about the persona of, this is what we have, and we're all money and whatever. And I would rather have all the love in the world than all the money, because that's not going to keep you warm at night. And so we got there, and my daughter wanted to see the dog, and my daughter has special needs, and she told her, no, you're not going to see her. And she said, well, can you let her out so I can see her right here? No. So I said, you know what? I've held on to this for decades, and it's killing me inside. And I said, your husband and I have had arguments, and most of the time they're in front of you, but there's been a couple that we took outside, and he didn't tell you what they were about. Don't you ever wonder why? And I told her, I said, I'm not this bad person. He made you out to be this bad person, that you're unhappy and you're miserable and you're overweight and you're this and you're that. And I said, I cannot leave and not clear my conscience, because I want to be able to lay my head down at night and say, I finally let you know exactly what's going on. And he told me that if I ever told you, he would throw us out, and he would make everything miserable. He held the inheritance over my head. And I told her, you know what? I don't care. Keep it. Do whatever you want. I don't care. And so I said, I have proof that he has just belittled you. He has said the most disgusting things about you. He said the most disgusting things about her son. I have proof of all of it. And she's like, show me. And I said, you're still my mom, and I respect the unity of marriage. So I'm going to be honest with you. And I said, how did you not know that this woman went? And she's like, well, there's two sides to every story. Okay, well, if there's two sides to every story, why didn't he ever tell you she was there? Why would he hide that? She didn't have an answer. So I said, here's a picture of her feeding him. Here's some pictures of the text messages, because he would send it to me like he was bragging, because he knew I wouldn't take it to her. He knew I wouldn't take it to his wife. And I said, here they are. And I bet you the pile is at least this thick. And I said, I can do this all day. I can show you other women. I can show you where he was just absolutely degrading your son, talking about.
So I understand. The way I understand it before is that your mom was the narcissistic one. So
they both were.
Oh, they both are.
Yes. And that's why I was so happy for my grandparents, because I asked my grandmother, why is he so different? And she said that my mother ruined him, is what my grandparents had told me. That was my dad's parents. And I said, well, I don't understand why I'm so different. I have nothing in common with them. I feel like I'm adopted, or I was found on a firehouse step or something. And she said, well, and I said, but you raised him. Why is he so different? And she says, well, how come you're so different? And that made so much sense to me, because that's right. And she's like, you accept what you want, and then you can take that into your personality and your format in life. And that's true. So I didn't get it first, because I was too young to realize what she meant with my mother ruined him. But I got it. He got worse and worse as the years went on.
Yes, I know, because they basically use, so they will, I know because it happened the same thing with my dad and my stepdad, where my mom really destroyed them. They become evilized because I think my perception is that they demolish the image that that person has of you. And so because the image of you becomes so dirty and ugly, they feel they have the right to treat you the way they do. And that just poisons the whole thing. Now, when did you find out or figure out that it was narcissistic abuse?
Not until I was an adult. And I just thought that they were the complete opposite of my grandparents. I had not been around that many other people to know. I was at my school's counselor, elementary, middle, and high school, and they don't really talk about that stuff. I didn't really know until I really started going into adult counseling, because I didn't understand why I didn't fit in or why I wasn't loved. And I actually did everything I did in my professional career to get them to say, we're proud of you. And it never happened. It didn't happen. I was an executive before I was 21, and I still wouldn't get, I'm proud of you. Didn't
I'm the
matter.
same exact thing. I
And
know
it
exactly
hurts.
how you feel. Yeah.
It
I
hurts.
know.
And then you have your mother who, if her son calls at midnight and says his toilet is stopped up, hand to God, I'm serious, she goes over there at midnight and unclogs it for him because he doesn't know how to unclog a toilet. And you're like, I don't
But
understand.
he has, because I think he gave up entirely the power. So he's completely under her control. And so it's, for her, it makes her feel very important and loved and needed and everything a narcissistic adores. So it's the perfect relationship. My brother is very close to that, not to that point, but there's some similarities in the fact that he was very, very smart, but never had a great career or anything, just destroyed, I think, from the get-go. So how do we move on from that? How did you move on from all of that? How do you heal?
I advocate for special needs families and for children. I've been doing that for over 15 years. And I work with domestic violence survivors. And I learned that I'm not really the only one that gets, when they come from a narcissistic family, they get so used to that that's what they look for in a partner. And then they kind of just go to that because that's what they see. So when I'm talking to these women and I tell them, I know you want to stay because you think there's hope he'll change. But what are you telling your daughter? What are you telling your son? Are you telling your son it's okay to treat a woman that way because his mom is taking that? And I understand that not one woman asks for it, not one hit. One hit is too many. It is not okay. But there is a timing. And for people who've never walked in our shoes, you can't say, why'd you make him mad? Why haven't you left? Why did you stay? Don't say that. You're adding to her humiliation. We don't need that. We need encouragement and support. And that's what we're not getting. And so when it's the right time, then they'll leave. But they know when it's the right time because there is a heightened of violence at that time when they leave because the abuser knows it's coming or it suspects it. And I feel like the narcissistic growth that we experience as children raising into teenagers kind of puts us into that, well, that's acceptable because that's what we've grown up knowing as a father figure or a mother figure.
We don't know what is good and what is bad. We don't have the education to know this is where I put my boundaries. This is not acceptable of a behavior. This is actually belittling. This is actually abuse. So we don't, right? We don't know. We don't know anything. And so everything seems like, it should, I think that's okay. It should be, it might be, maybe it's me. Right? That's
absolutely. Maybe it's me. Why? What have I done?
Maybe it's me.
Yes.
At the end of the day. So if only I act differently, if I'm nicer, kinder, if I walk on eggshells all day, then, eventually they won't massacre me mentally and physically. So yeah, I totally understand. And good for you that you're doing that because it is unfortunately a pattern that repeats itself. The same, my ex-husband, you know, I can't, like, looking back, I can't even believe that I married him with all the red flags that were there beforehand. And I understand why, but at the same time, I'm like, wow, you know, so I have a lot of compassion, like you said, for women in those relationships. We cannot judge how they got there, why they're still there. It's a big also comfort zone. A lot of women are extremely scared of what happens outside.
Yes.
A lot of people don't want to end up alone, no matter what. And what do I do with my kids? And how? And also, abusers control the finances. So now, what do I do? I don't have money. How am I going to work? They control even their circumstances before. So a lot of these individuals don't even have experience to work for very long. So the rehabilitation is very, very hard. That's why I have the plan of creating a fund for that, to help victims escape with some funds, help them reinsert into the world with education, because yes, it is a big, big problem. But I'm glad you do that, because, and you're absolutely on point, saying that, okay, you might have accepted it, but what about your kid? Now you're teaching your children to accept this.
Right.
And that should be a big wake-up call for the parent.
Right. Well, I do a lot of teaching on my website. You can go on there, and there's different classes that we teach. My husband was a police officer and a canine handler, so he's on there because I know so many kids want to be a cop when they're little, and they can come on and have a little support class with him. And then we do support social groups, get to know each other, and it's a non-judgmental, anti-bullying, safe haven for everyone. So you can come in and talk and be you, and it stays there, and you can vent out, and you're understood because we've been there, we understand it, we know what you're going through. We have resources there that we can help. It's something that I wish I had. It's why I did it, because I went through this by myself, and I did it with my daughter in the hospital. We were there for 6 months. My daughter's had 34 surgeries. She's the light of my life. And I put everything into this that I never had, that I needed, that I wanted, that would have helped me in that time, because I was by myself and I was fighting everybody and anybody, going through court, going for TPOs, going for restraining orders, and, you know, going for the termination of rights, and going through a divorce. And I had all my injuries and she had hers, and I was a single mom. I was like, how am I going to do this? And I didn't have anyone, no one. And so this is why I've done this, is so we can show them that they are not alone. It does make a big difference. And I'm going to help them bring back that inner light that's in there, because even one tiny little star in the darkest night will light up your pathway. And they are beautiful, and they need to know that. And it's not them. It is that monster who is insecure. It is that monster who is just, he's the one who needs help. And the question I ask is, why is it the victims or survivors that always end up in therapy, and the ones that really need it, they don't go? And they're the ones who need to be there.
Yeah, and they'll never realize or accept, or they'll never come to terms that it's there, that they have any issues. Actually, in their minds, they're like perfect. And even what they give us, the treatment that we take, in their minds is for our own good. It's like to show us the right way, to show us how to really behave properly. And in their mind, everything is like I know my mom is like, for my mother, it was like, because I made you, you owe me to love me no matter what. That was in her like talk, was that. And because of that, I can inflict upon you whatever I want, because you'll ever come back to me loving me anyway. And so in their minds, it's like so logical and correct that it's impossible to get them into treatment.
Right, because they don't think they've done anything wrong.
Exactly. And unfortunately, we're the ones that suffer and have to live with it. So, so what would be, if you had one advice for someone currently in a situation with a narcissistic abuser, what would you tell them?
Not to give up hope on themselves, that they are worth everything, that more people, especially if they have kids, their kids are looking up to them as to what's acceptable as they grow and what is not acceptable. And that what I always said, and I've done that to this day with my daughter, is that if I got a disagreement with my biological parents, I sent her out of the room. I never argue in front of her because she thinks that's okay. She would say, you know, well, mom never let me stay in the room when grandpa or whatever would argue with her. She always made me leave. Why? Because I'm an adult and I've told her, always watch your words, because your words you can't take back down the road. And so I've never screamed at my child. You could bring her in here right now and she'll say, my mom's never hit me. She's never yelled at me, because I know what that feels like. And that doesn't go away. So you are strong. You're stronger than you know, because you're surviving him. Whether he wants to admit it or not, you're surviving him. It's kind of like I look at my scars, and for the longest time I was like, I'm just all scarred up. And my parents were like, oh, nobody's ever going to want you. You're all scarred from everywhere. And I looked at it and I was like, those are reminders of how many times I succeeded and he failed. And you are strong. Come to one of our groups. Come sit in with us. Let us talk you through it. Let us just start giving you, you know, psychological advice. I mean, I'm not a PhD. I don't have a degree in psychology. I have hard knocks. And, you know, you want to come in and say, these are simple tools that you can do every day to get yourself ready, build an escape plan, and get out.
That's amazing. I love
you
that.
have to be ready. And if you're not, and you're not in order, it's not going to work. And nobody outside the realm of understanding gets it.
And on top of it, the worst that happens, I believe, is when they fail at escape and come back. Right. Because then the treatment is 10 times worse, because
every time
narcissists are very revengeful and very resentful, and they will mentally torture the person who dared to escape and then failed and had to come back. I think it's the worst possible thing that can happen. So yeah, planning the escape to have a successful escape is paramount.
I did, and you don't. I didn't go back. So I mean, you just have to know how to do it and get yourself in order. And then in the long run, it's much worth. You know, it's much worth it, because you're going to get out and succeed and survive. And I actually show people how you can regenerate yourself, rebuild yourself, make yourself somebody else. I can teach you how to be safe online. I can teach you how to prevent, you know, any glitches where he could find you. I can teach you. I go through all of that, and even show different safety measures that you can do at home and in the car and at work and things of that nature to protect yourself, even if it's for your own peace of mind and you're overwhelmed going, wow, there's just so many of these options that you give me. Well, what works for one's not going to work for another, but I'm going to give you plenty of options that you can say A, C, E, F, and G work, and then B, D, Q, and R might work for somebody else. But as long as it works, that's all that matters.
Exactly. Well, I'm super happy we had this talk, and I hope we connect again. Like I said, I'm currently planning to develop this fund. And so, you know, we might at some point, I see later on, perhaps collaborate in some ways where some of these women can get educated and have some tools on how to get a job when they get out, or even, you know, work from home kind of things. And so we'll keep in touch. I'll let you know. And for everybody out there, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope it brings a lot more awareness to the world. I think it's critical, and I hope we do. I believe we will save lives with these videos. That out there, it's going to be a beacon of light of people that can know that life can be different. You can survive, you can thrive. We all have scars, whether they're visible or not. Some are deeper than others, but most of us eventually succeed and are able to thrive. And that's what I wish everybody who watches. And what I'll do, Victoria, is I'll post the link to your website. I invite everybody who watches the video to go on your website and take some classes, get familiar, and of course, escape as soon as possible, so you have a second chance at life.
And
so
you know, you can, I even tell women, I didn't mean to interrupt you, I apologize. You can even, I've even told women that, like, I have hearing aids, but if they have AirPods and they're somewhere and their abuser is, you know, talking or whatever, put on this video, turn the face of your phone off so it's a black screen, and listen to your words that you just said of encouragement, because your words were beautiful and they were so heartfelt, and I know you meant them. They weren't just, you know, stated. You're genuine. And that makes all the difference in the world, because you feel it. I feel that this is your purpose. I know this is my purpose. And they can listen to encouragement, which is exactly what they need, and they're not getting, because they don't have it from anywhere else. They've been cut out of their friends and family. They've been isolated. So put in your earbuds, your hearing aids, whatever it is, black out the screen on your phone and listen to your words that you just said over and over again, because they are so encouraging. And I know that they're going to help so many out there.
Thank you so much, Victoria. I appreciate that. And yes, it is a good advice, so that at least they can get empowered in silence and nobody would know. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you a lot. Thanks for coming. Hopefully we get back in touch. We do another one later on. And yeah, for everybody out there, just go on her website and get a second life, a second chance at thriving. So thank you so much, everyone. And thank you, Victoria.
Thank you so much.